DJI recently released the Pocket 3, the third iteration of the brand's popular handheld gimbal camera. I did a dedicated walkthrough video on my channel which you can take a look at to learn more about the new sensor, the various modes and so on. But in this video I'm going to share some secrets on how not just to capture footage, but how to make this footage look cinematic. Hopefully this information will be useful if you're a single crewed filmmaker or you just want to level up the production value of your vlogs. So let's get started. So this is how I set up my Pocket 3 Cinematic Challenge. I headed to my local nature reserve and I gave myself just 30 minutes to capture enough footage for a short teaser film, which I'll show at the end of this video. First up, let's talk about our settings. Head to the frame rate options and you'll want to select 4K 24p. You can use this setting pretty much all the time unless you're shooting slow motion sequences or time lapses. Next up, let's take control of the colours in our scene by switching from the standard profile to D-Log, which will help us make more of the colour and dynamic range in post-production. Now, the first shot we're going to use is replicating the look of an expensive Hollywood crane, except instead of that pricey crane, we're using a selfie stick. I have a couple of these for my action and 360 cameras, but you can use pretty much any version really. The trick here is to keep the movement of the selfie stick really smooth, and it helps if you can show scale by adding some foreground interest such as leaves on trees at a height. So go from low to high or from high to low. So we've gone high, now it's time to get mega low. Adding juxtapositions, going from high to low, creates variation in your footage so that even if you're shooting in the same scene, it can look totally different. You'll need to support the Pocket 3, so I use a mini tripod like this one. I like to use this shot for a low down view of me walking through the frame. Now we're going to start to ramp up the creativity, and this next shot, the pull push shot, is where we'll need to change focus mode on the Pocket 3 from continuous to single. This is so we can keep the background in focus as we pull the camera back or push it forward, revealing more or less of the scene. Switch the gimbal mode to tilt locked mode and you can simply move backwards and forwards with the Pocket 3. Now I went a step further and used the selfie stick again and passed the camera through a gap in a bench seat. You can never do this with a mirrorless camera, and it shows exactly what can be achieved with the Pocket 3. The next shot we're going to talk about is the follow, and it takes advantage of the Pocket 3's tracking technology to replicate the look of having a second camera person working in your production, following the subject as if they have the camera set up on a tripod, panning it around. Now for this shot, make sure the face detection is switched on and walk parallel or diagonally through the scene. This shot works really well as an establishing shot when you're travelling to a destination. Okay, we're going to get really creative now, and we're going to take advantage of the spin shot feature found on the Pocket 3. Now, this can be set to spin the camera through 90 or 180 degrees, but that's only half the story. To create a spinning vortex effect, combine the spin shot with some movement either forwards or backwards or even sideways. Now, this is an extreme movement, so while it does work well, it's worth remembering that it's not right for every setting. Being able to show the passing of time can add an extra dimension to your footage and ramp up the production values while giving a cinematic feel. And this is where time-lapse comes into play. The trick to cinematic time-lapse footage is to show a decent amount of movement, whether that be waves crashing against the shore, or clouds streaking through the sky, or even the sun coming up and down at sunset or sunrise. For me, time-lapse creation shouldn't last too long as viewers will lose interest, but sequences between 5 to 10 seconds seem to work well. I also like to digitally zoom in or out in post-production as this adds more interest to the time-lapse footage. Finally, our last shot makes use of the Pocket 3's slow motion mode to create some cinematic footage. Remember, with the Pocket 3 you can film slow motion footage up to 4K 120p, but if you do drop down to Full HD you can film at 240 FPS. Now, one thing to be aware of is that at the time of filming, this may change if they bring out a firmware update, you can only capture slow motion footage in standard profile, not D-Log unfortunately. Right, that's 7 cinematic tips served up, so let's pull them all together and see how they look in the final film set to some background music. There we go. I think that shows just how creative you can be using the techniques we've talked about in this video. Let me know what you think about these tips, and please remember to like and subscribe. I'll see you next time.